interesting topic that we love to talk about, and some of the feedback from our earlier sessions that maybe we could do a little bit of ground laying work. So we're going to start with some background information just for everybody. Maybe you're a new client or you're an existing client who's not aware of the exciting features that come into the Treasure Data platform. And from there, we'll actually dive into how we're going to use predictive scoring to do a number of different things. And there'll be time at the end for questions if you have any questions. And as well, my contact information is here if you want to reach out to me directly with any specific questions. So just to level set so that everybody knows, CDP is a customer data platform, and this term really came into existence relatively recently. So we find it's helpful to provide a viewpoint on what our understanding, as well as the marketplace's understanding, how it's coalescing on what a CDP is. And so for us and for places like the CDP Institute, which is an authority on this subject, it has to provide three really key components that you can get to. One is your unified customer view, two is actionable insights, and three is personalized engagement. And so I won't bore you with all the bullet points there, but the main point is that we're able to get all of our customer data across channels, get all of that into a single place, get actionable insights, and then do some sort of personalized engagement on that. Cross-channel is a big point, proving point there, and that you can optimize per channel by whatever tool you're using right now. But if you want to optimize across channels, you need to leverage a CDP tool. And so this is how we think about, just at a high level architecture, what we can do in terms of taking in data, transporting it, as well as executing. And so for us, just to talk a little bit about the terminology that Laura mentioned in the title, we consider campaign execution is also called syndication. So that's how we typically refer to it. This is where we're sending data out to other endpoints to activate against it. So we start on the left with your first-party customer data, whether it's from your application or your website, maybe social data, point-of-sale data is something I'm personally working a lot with right now. Pulling all that together and creating golden customer records. And from those records, we're potentially putting data in from second and third-party data management platform tools, analyzing it, and then syndicating it or activating it out through these endpoints, whether it could be some sort of display advertising, some sort of personalized communication, or if you like to use some sort of advanced analytics tool. So for us, these are the key components of what a CDP can provide for you as a customer. And sorry, I'm trying to move the little widget around. And so this is kind of a walkthrough, and we're going to definitely go through hands-on how we do this, but this is where we talk about what is a user profile. And what a user profile is, once you get all of these data collected together and unified in a single location, then what you can do is you can pull up an individual profile, and I'll show you how to do it live in the platform here in a second. But just to walk through the sections of the actual interface here, is that you can easily understand what happened on recent campaigns. So the last 3 campaigns, regardless of the channel by which they came from, are up here, and they can tell you what's going on. You can have the overall historical activities down below. There are some clients who upload their picture. We have pictures to pull in the customers. That's why that specific picture is there. There's some geolocation functionality as well, where we can calculate based on perhaps the data that's available, either coming from your website or from your mobile app, trying to figure out what's their geofencing or geolocation. We provide content affinity, which I will talk about at the end very briefly. If your site is tagged correctly, and usually it is, we're able to enrich your web analytics data pull from our JavaScript SDK and provide content affinity telling you they are interested in this particular piece of content. And then here are some, potentially some inferred demographics. So this is a user profile, and this is really what we're trying to get to with a CDP, is to understand who is this person, what are they interested in, what motivates them to interact with your brand or product, and then from there, how can we either keep them as a customer or maybe upsell them, better serve them as a company or a product. So we're trying to get to here. And so what we can do is, and we'll show you how to do this on the live demo here in just a second, is that we actually create segments. We have a drop-down editor, and they're attribute-based filter. And what you can do is create segments based on pretty much anything that exists in your data set. And that could be if you've enriched your data set to be male or female gender, purchase price, many different attributes or behaviors. And for us at Treasure Data, is just touch on that real quickly. An attribute is something that is either slowly changing or really doesn't change at all. So a good example of that might be like your name or your email address is generally not super changing, maybe your address. So you could move, but in general, you won't. Your gender, those things won't necessarily change over time. It's possible, but generally they don't. You have one of those in general. And so that's something that we call an attribute. Behaviors are things that happen over time. And in the context of a CDP, a behavior could be interaction with your different marketing channels, interaction with your website, interaction with specific ads, interaction with your customer service desk, interaction with your point of sale data. We pull all that together, so it could be any one of those or all of them at the same time, just something that happens over time. So attributes and behaviors are really important for us. And then here is what we call syndication. Again, we'll walk through this again. What is great is that when you create this segment here, and a segment is a piece of an audience, and we'll go into detail once we get into the console or into the interface. A segment is a subset of your audience which matches these filter criteria. So you could be looking for males who are active, 7 days ago or whatever, and they're from Japan. And then what you can do is you can actually target those people with a syndication. In this case, we're sending it to MailChimp. And so what we're doing is we're creating a way for us to actually activate and operationalize that segment. So again, it's very different from maybe an analysis tool. We don't create this segment and then just try to create analysis or reports around that segment. What we actually do is try to activate out that segment. So here we're actually sending it to MailChimp. So the use case might be, I want to send a survey to this profile of customers because they've sent enough money and we've kind of figured out that that's an important customer unit for us to figure out, to take care of. So in this case, what the customer could have set up is a MailChimp, maybe a survey of some sort or whatever the case may be, to send them a push pull to try and get them to understand what their motivations and so forth. But they can be many different types. We'll go through that they are. And like I said, a segment is a subset of an audience. And I'll show you how to build this in just a second. But an audience for us is really the largest logical volume of people or container of people that you would like to manage. And so this is specifically per user. We don't prescribe to you what an audience is. I have seen audiences that are basically everyone who is in their customer data platform. I have seen audiences that are everybody who are in a specific country controlled by or affinity for a specific brand of some product. It depends on how you're managing these. So if you have people managing these on like a brand level, you probably would have an audience for that brand. If you would like to look at your entire global level, you can create an audience. And basically what you do is you create an audience first, and then you actually do segmentation second. And I'll show you how we do it. Let's skip that real quick. And so, but what does all this mean? We're talking about audiences, segments, syndications, and so forth. How does that actually work in the wild when we're trying to do it? So this is a great piece of content on how this would work actually with email customization and personalization. And what we can do is send emails and then get back data from the email vendor, or we can embed our JavaScript. And then from there, we're actually sending data from the email channel directly back into the CDP tool. And so what we can do is integrate one of two ways. So this is just the data integration, but the whole point is that we can customize this content, and as well, not only the content, but the frequency of communication. One very common challenge for enterprise companies is that they have a number of tools and they're over communicating with clients. They're sending them emails on top of emails on top of emails, like 8 emails when you sign up. This is extremely common. So using the Treasure Data platform to syndicate your data out, you can more carefully control how frequently you're communicating with your customers, so you're not over communicating with them. And this is the data inflow for us to integrate back within them. But we're here, the title of this webinar is Predictive Scoring. So pause for a second and say we are definitely going to talk about predictive scoring and machine learning and give you a little bit of a background. There is an easy way to do this. This is just a little bit of the data to build up so that when you see the easy way, it's very easy. And so we do have a SQL query engine that we use, both Presto and Hive. And the reason I mention that is that some clients like to develop their own models. So for those clients who are interested in developing their own machine learning models, we're not a black box. We provide you the tools by which you can develop your own models and therefore deploy those models inside of Treasure Data using our scalability. If that's what you would like to do, we offer that as an option. We are not a black box or behind the scenes company. We have a way to figure this out. Let me skip a little bit. And so one thing is that if you have this interest in kind of looking at data at a very granular level and figuring out some sort of predictive scoring model on your own, typically this is a tremendous effort to figure this whole thing out. There's a lot of engineering that has to go along, a lot of prototyping. On the left-hand side is how you would typically write this in a different platform. On our code, everything exists as SQL, so it's a very low weight. So again, if you want to write your own predictive scoring tool, this is 100% easier than doing it another way. And so we offer very easy to use tools to do this. And let me just walk through the use cases here to say what problems we actually might solve with predictive scoring. So again, something that we want to do is event-based retargeting. And what that means is, suppose you have a customer history coming in, and then at some point you want to create a business rule to say, okay, we want to retarget this person. Maybe they're about to churn or they're about to convert, and you want to set this whole thing up so you can create this application provider. So using Treasure Data, because we are getting the entire customer view, what you can do is actually retarget them intelligently so that you're not over-targeting them, and you're just targeting them at the right time because you have a view across channels to what's going on. And as well, we offer a lot of first-party data as the main focus of any customer data platform. As well, for some clients in Predictive, I'm working on a project right now where we're actually enriching that data with third-party data pulled from a DMP. So this is 100% possible. We are not in competition with DMPs. They serve a different purpose by which they're serving third-party data and advertising. So we actually can enrich our data with the data pulled from a DMP and make the segments inside of your tool even more powerful. And finally, here's where we have email personalization. And what we want to do here is understand how we can more appropriately either understand the manner in which we're communicating with clients, as well as the frequency by which we're communicating with clients. And finally, cross-channel measurement is a big selling point for CDPs. This is something that is critically important for any customer, which would be any enterprise customer that is interested in cross-channel measurement and analytics. So enterprises are pretty good about in-channel measurement and analytics. And by that I mean most enterprises at this point have a decent web or mobile analytics tool. They have some sort of digital advertising system. They have CRM data. They may or may not have offline data. So all of these things are pretty mature, but they're looking at them in silos. They're using tools like Adobe Analytics, which is a great tool, but it's really focused on your web. And that is the best purpose for that tool, is to optimize and understand your web user experience. With Treasure Data, you can actually pull all that data into a single customer experience and track all of that data in a single place so that you can activate it out against it. And finally, predictive scoring. So this is predictive lead scoring that we like to talk about, and probably like why you're here on this this particular webinar. And so what we have behind the scenes for marketers is develop a tool which leverages machine learning and enables you to build a predictive scoring model without having to write SQL code. And so this is a great option for people who want to generate these predictive scoring models, but don't want to get a master's or PhD in statistics, right? Excuse me. So these are people who are your typical marketers, and what the workflow typically is they bring data in, and then we can actually build predictive scoring using our tool, and then we send that out, and because the data is integrated, as I showed you before, we're actually feeding back into the model, and we're validating the model, so the model is evolving over time. This is predictive lead scoring, and I'm going to show you how we do it here in just a second. But that's not the last slide. Let me go over to this guy. And so this is the, let's start at the audience level. And what we have here is an audience we developed actually for, and just to be clear, this is synthetic data, which means it's data based on some semblance of reality, but it's not necessarily real data. So this is not client's data. And so I like to start at the audience. And as I said, an audience is typically the largest logical object by which you organize your customers. This happened to be every customer that's in this demo data set. You can select it from here, and this is a drop down telling you where you can pull it down from. And so this is pulling Martech Demo DB and pulling this table and so forth. User master, there we go. I'm not going to run it because I'm trying to walk through it here. So again, here's where attributes and behaviors become important. So attributes for us, the way it works is that you actually pull up and you combine the data, or in SQL they would say join the data. But if you've ever used like a pivot table or a lookup table, lookup function in Excel, it works exactly the same way as the lookup function in Excel. We just say, okay, what we have here is we have a key that which we're going to join these two data sets on. This one here is not correct. This should be TD. This got to reset. TD client ID. There we go. And so here, TD client ID is the same as TD client ID. This is a different table. So you'll have one row in this table for every one row here. So again, you're thinking about these are extending your attributes of your customer so that each time you're extending it. So maybe you have demographic information about them. These are just where there's one of each to each customer. And as well, we also have behaviors. And so with behaviors, what those are, again, are things that happen over time. In this particular case, what we have are page views. These could be Zendesk tickets, they could be purchases, they can be anything you want, as long as they happen over time. And so what you do is you save it, and it creates this audience. It takes a few minutes to run, so I won't run it live. I have pre-cooked the turkey, so that, and I made a change, but I don't want them to save it. So it pulls up your customers, and it creates this actual view of customers that exist in your system. And I have one ready to go right here. And so here's this customer with the name Justin Gordon, and here are, sometimes there's a profile picture. It depends on if this email is tied to a specific API and the customer has synced it up. Here you can pull up their attributes. So this is pretty important for things like GDPR. So it helps with your GDPR compliance as well, in that you can see, is the person in here? Have we removed their email address? So this is another nice step for your compliance with the various data security infrastructure regulations that exist around the world. That's a new use case that I've really discovered is very helpful in the last probably month or two. But primarily we use it to figure out, okay, I want to look at what is he interested in, maybe what's their average payment amount and so forth. So these are their attributes over here. Their behaviors are over here. And the way it works is that these are the last three campaigns. So we had retargeting campaign, we had MWC 2018, and July 4th special. And so what we can say is we can pull up and see what's going on. Maybe they click through. What happened in that campaign? Were they interested in us, or were they not? As well as their activities over time are right here. These are web activities, but you can have pretty much any type of activity that you feel like understanding. And so what you can do is pull up for each person what's going on with their specific campaigns. And so that's the customer view. But if you're in an enterprise or even a small or medium-sized business, you're probably not going to activate against this. You're going to do what we call our segments. And I'm going to show you, I have a pre-canned one already. This guy here. And so, actually, let's start. Let me take a step back. I apologize. Here is like a very basic segment. And the way it works is that you just grab this drop down and you say the value of this attribute, average payment amount, is greater than or equal 800. and value of average payment amount is, let's say less than or equal to 1,000. I'm not going to save it just to be safe. So there, what you have are people who have spent between $800 and $1,000, and you can click the little refresh button and it actually tells you how many people are in this segment. In this demo audience, we happen to have 1,001 people. There are 62 people, according to this data set, who have spent between these amounts of money. And what you can do is add these together if you'd like. So all you do is for this guy here. So again, to create the segment, let's actually go back and create one from scratch. That might make more sense. So you click the little plus guy, and you see, let's say we want to have average payment is equal to 0. Can't remember if they exist in this data set or not. No, it's more than 100. Let's say people who spent at least $100. Great, fantastic. So you have 648. And so we have, you could say this is your maybe some threshold of customer, gender, and we want to find, and this one, because it's a label value, we want to find males. Great. Actually, let's look for females because there are fewer of them. So females who've spent over $100 on these particular website. And so you can see that you can stack these attributes however you need to do to meet your business needs. And what this greatly leverages the data that exists on Treasury has all been processed, and so it's a little bit more friendly for a marketer to use this instead of SQL. Then once you build these segments, what do you do with them? We talked about syndication a little bit earlier. This is a good example. Pretty similar to the one I had before. Here, we're actually taking out these data, and pushing them out to MailChimp. So maybe we're doing a push poll, trying to figure out like, okay, these are high value customers. We want to make sure they're super happy. So we're going to send them a MailChimp survey as soon as they buy something to make sure they're happy. But we only want to send them one because we don't want to overwhelm them. And what you can do is you can set up logic behind the scenes that will trigger this to happen basically very shortly after they make their purchase. And so that they're getting this in a timely fashion, but not in an oppressively fashion. And so that's how that guy works. And then from there, you can actually syndicate to many different components of the marketing infrastructure. Facebook is very extremely common. Google, we work with Marketo to redo retargeting. We have different data point endpoints. A big one for us a lot of times is, let me see if I find it, Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So Salesforce Marketing Cloud is probably the number one version that I use right now. It's where Salesforce Marketing Cloud is the old ExactTarget product. It's an email vendor. So we have a large number of use cases whereby we are creating email lists to serve business purposes and then sending the email, we're triggering the emails here. The creative is still created back on the Salesforce Marketing Cloud side. What we're doing is we're creating a segment of people and then uploading that list to Salesforce Marketing Cloud so that it connects that with the list with the appropriate content and sends the email. So this could be like a welcome to Treasure Data email. You signed up for Treasure Data, great. We're going to send you a welcome email. Here's how it works. And again, this is to make sure that we're not oppressively emailing people or bombarding them with 8 different emails once they sign up. Once they sign up, they're already your customer. You want to take care of them, communicate with them the right way possible. So here, using syndications, we can do things like send an email once and then don't send them a second one, until a few days later if they haven't signed up. You can work this logic into this guy here. And so those are how you would syndicate the data. But I imagine most people are here for predictive scoring. So again, this is something that runs behind the scenes. You don't have to know SQL to do this. So you come down to our predictive scoring tab, and what you can do is create a predictive scoring. The way it works is that you actually need 2 segments. One would be an all customers segment, which you can create up here, or if you don't need to. And then the other would be people who have converted to some event. In this particular component, we have looked at people who spent between 800 and we want to know we're trying to identify people who might move up to $800 to $1,000 in purchase price. And so what we've done is we've identified a segment of people who've already accomplished that goal. So that's what this segment here is doing, is average payment between $800 and $1,000. This is where we want to move people to. Right now, we only have 62 customers. We want to move more customers into this segment. So what you do is you provide this here. You click all customers, and then you provide your target segment. Down here, there's a button which says guess columns. The tool guesses the columns for you, and it is accurate, I think, in my experience, every time. I don't know the exact accuracy. This is something that, in general, you don't have to worry about. What it does, it basically wants to keep track of what are categorical columns and what are quantitative columns. And by that, I mean the big use case is zip code, because a zip code comes in as a number. And so the tool has to understand that a zip code is actually a categorical column, that it's a bucket. It's not some sort of numerical value that has any real meaning. And so that's something that we look for automatically, but these are pretty much okay. And so what you do is you click run, and it runs for a few minutes, takes a few minutes. We won't run it live. But at the end of the day, what you do is two things happen. You get a fancy, dancy dashboard, first and foremost. And just to walk through this dashboard, because it's pretty awesome, what the dashboard does is, what the tool does behind the scenes, it actually creates 4 new segments for you. People who have not converted and are unlikely to move to your goal, marginally likely, possibly, and likely. So it creates, these are technically created 4 new segments, and I'll show you how to pull those up here in a minute. And it gives you a breakdown of what's going on with the data. So here are the converted, and it's a little bit hard to see, but the converted are down here, this little light blue component here. And the blue, dark blue, are the people who have not converted. So we see we have a big stack of people who are marginally likely to convert, 735 people. That's a lot out of this component. It may be realistic. And what you can do as a marketer, it provides you the information by which you can prioritize how you're communicating. Again, the CDP is to get to a personalized communication level. And what this tool allows you to do is to say, you know what, maybe we're not going to blast market these bottom 2 tiers. Reason being, they are unlikely to convert. We need to do a little bit something different to engage with them. Using the data points we have, we don't necessarily know that they are likely to convert. You might go at them in a different way, but in terms of this, specific email and media upsell, they are not predicted to be people who will likely convert. The people who are likely going to convert and who are going to provide greater ROI, as well as just a greater benefit to your customer, to your company, are in the possibly and likely to convert. And so the way that you can operationalize this is that you can send emails to just maybe 1 or 2, the 2 most likely to convert buckets. Instead of email blasting everyone who hasn't converted, or even worst case scenario, email blasting everyone who has converted as well as who hasn't converted, trying to get them to buy, we've taken the first step of identifying the people who haven't bought, which is a big task, and the second step of prioritizing the people who have not bought. So we're not saying email everyone. If you'd like to, that's great. That's your decision, but we're empowering you with the information to say, okay, this likely to convert segment is pretty interesting. It's only 61 people out of whoever's left, and there's 179 so here. Okay, so if I could put these 2 groups together and come up with an email campaign to try to move them along the funnel, and this bucket over here, like, we're going to have to think about this and perhaps try a different tactic, or maybe re-examine the data and bring more data in. And so it brings you your dashboard here. It shows you your customers. But if we go back to the segments point, let's say new batch segment, what we can do is we pull in the and we say predictive scoring, likely to buy. There we go. So let's say likely and possibly, or let's say likely. And this is possibly, let's go this way. And so now we have 207 people in our segment, and that's awesome. Now we know who we need to target for email or direct mail, or maybe both, in order to help move them along the funnel. We've gone from a bucket of people who may or may not, a bucket of people who just haven't purchased. So now we're down to 207 people who we predict are likely to be moving along and making a purchase and so forth. And so this is a great way for you to prioritize how your marketing efforts are being spent and so on and so forth. So that's predictive scoring in a nutshell. There's a couple other ways which I'm going to touch on which we can interact with these segments, and one other tool I'm going to showcase in just a second, how we integrate with Google. So just 1 second. So if you came back here, one thing, if you paid really close attention, there are actually two types of segments. We have batch segments and real-time segments. And so for us, they serve pretty different purposes. The batch segment is going to take a look at potentially all of your data. It's going to require a little bit of processing, not an extensive amount of time, but it's a batch process and it happens, very frequently throughout the day. A real-time segment is something that will happen over the course of real time, and so we're streaming events in. And so let's look at something of this nature here. Let's say value of behavior, page views is greater than 0. And so what we can do with this API is say, actually greater than 5. What this API can do is, if you install the JavaScript SDK on your website, and I'm going to go through that again in here just a second, how it relates to this. If you install the JavaScript SDK onto your website, as a person is coming in and looking at your website, what you can do is understand how, what you can do is query the real-time API, and they'll give you back this segment they belong into. And what you can do is really make these as complex as you would like to do. And so let me pull up that example, 1 second. So there's two ways I'm going to showcase how to do it right here. And just give me 1 second. This is the direct segmentation. So if you have on your website, some jQuery, or excuse me, if you have some JavaScript, most likely using jQuery. And so what you do is you actually query the personalization API, which is taking into account the predictive scoring. And what you can do is query it via JavaScript, and then this is how you would manually integrate it. So it's not, for the faint of heart, it definitely requires some JavaScript. So, but just to walk through maybe the first component here, if you're in this segment 2001, then what we're going to do is we're going to update this to say, here is some message. And then let's say that maybe you're in this segment, which means you've come back and you're actually in multiple segments. And so what you did is you looked at contact us, but didn't submit, and you've had more than 10 page views. So this is a complex use case, right? So this is someone who's been to the website, viewed the contact us, and been on their page views. They haven't submitted the contact information. So as an enterprise, that's somebody that you would potentially want to reach out to. And if you see that, it's right here. So that was generated dynamically, pulling from the personalization API, how you would get it to there. And so that's something that we can do for web personalization, but fundamentally for email, it works the same way. And if you're a user of Google Optimize, which I'm finding out a lot of people are, this is a different way. Google Optimize, and it's not a Google Optimize webinar, but if you have any questions, maybe I might be able to ask them. Basically, what happens is Google Optimize looks for things in their data layer. And so here, what we're doing is we're putting to the data layer this JavaScript object, and we're saying TD device segments are some segment. We return the segments, and then we push this event optimize.activate. And Google Analytics on site will actually read this information and deliver content. And the way you actually set this up is right here. So this is Google Optimize. If you've never been here, if you come down to right here and where it says you have your objectives for your test for targeting, we're not really creating a test. What we're really doing is creating an experience. So it's a little bit different, but you can use this tool to deliver an experience. So you deliver 100% of your people are going to go into this experience. And then from there, what you can do is create a rule and then JavaScript variable down here. So you can actually create lots of different rules, but we're going to do JavaScript variable. And then here, JavaScript variable, we already have TD segments equals, 2001, if that's in your segments. or whatever the case may be. So as you set up your Google optimized experience, you can use this method in conjunction with treasure data to actually deliver personalized content or testing or whatever the case may be. And so with treasure data, what we try to do is we're not creating or managing this creative for you. We're going to work with other tools that already do the creative and then deliver that to the customer at the right time. And so that is pretty much everything I wanted to cover about personalization, and I covered everything about predictive scoring. And so just to summarize, what you can do through the predictive scoring tool is to actually create segments that derive toward your business goals. And the way that you syndicate or activate those out is either through a syndication tool or through an integration with our personalization API. Both of those ways are extremely powerful ways to integrate with our tool as is used to exhibit personalization. And I think at this point, Laura, I'll take a deep breath and ask if anybody has any questions.
Yep, we got some coming in already. So thank you. That was loved it, detailed. I learned stuff. So that was great. Let's see here. So first question here, how would this work in the Adobe stack?
So this is a great question. Last time I did Adobe tools, this time I tried to do Google tools because we are definitely agnostic. We are not, at this point, we don't have a dog in the fight, so we want to support both tools. It would work pretty similar. I'm actually working on some documentation on this, so hopefully I'll have that documented in the not too distant future. Adobe Target, just in the short run, it accepts, if you set up your experience more correctly, you can do query parameters, and so you basically have to use query parameters, I believe is how I've scripted it out, to send data to Target and then have this come back. And I will say this is a huge use case right now for many, many clients that are using Target to not test, but more in the case that I described here, which is to deliver content. So I'm thinking of at least 5 different clients that I've heard about or worked with directly who are leveraging treasure data to personalize content at enterprise scale. Treasure data is working with Target to personalize content at enterprise scale. So how you would do it, I have documentation hopefully forthcoming, not too distant future, but in the short run, yes, query parameters.
Okay, great, thanks. We've had a couple questions that people would like to have this webinar afterwards. We are definitely going to share the video. We're recording this and we will send it out to everybody. Feel free to share it with your teams. And another question here, what is the logic in the background that's used to categorize customers into unlikely, marginally, possibly, and likely?
That's a great question. So it is the treasure data machine learning engine that we've developed. So there's a machine learning, actually an entire machine learning workflow that actually breaks out the data and analyzes it at scale. So what's great about treasure data, like I said before, we're not a black box tool. If you have a team of data scientists and they want to dig into this, when you actually run this analysis here, you can see how it's being generated. So there are no black boxes here. You can see exactly which algorithms we're using. And if you'd like to, like I said, if you desire to increase, or if you feel like you can build a better mousetrap, we make the tools for that available to you. So the specific algorithm, I don't know off the top of my head, but there are actually a number of operations that go on behind the scenes to actually make the data like the right shape, make it into the right type of variables, and then analyze it and put it ready for here. And you can as well, just one thing I didn't include, because I don't want to, you can actually adjust your thresholds of like where you want people to be. You can move these around. The way this data got generated, this is probably more close to realistic than pretty. So, that's why it looks like there's a lot of people who aren't going to convert.
Okay, great. Let's see here. Another one. We have a couple questions of folks wanting to know how they can get hands-on. How can they test this themselves? That's
a great question. Mm-hmm. So part of the documentation I'm working on is actually a hands-on lab. If you were at Adobe Summit, they have hands-on labs, including one with Target that I took that was excellent. And I'm actually going to create this lab for us to do and get that. So if you're an existing customer, we have walkthroughs already. And as well, what we're going to post to the Treasure Data GitHub repo, I believe the first draft is going to be released on Monday of next week, is a lab to start talking about how would you do this. We're starting with JavaScript, just in full transparency. So how would you do this integration in JavaScript, and walking through it and working with like a test server, so you can have sort of this small test server. It's going to be pretty cool. I love it. I'm excited. So Monday, I'm going to release it on our GitHub here. Hopefully Monday. I think that's my plan. I need to get final approval for that. But Monday is when I plan to release it. If you don't follow us on GitHub, you can find us at Treasure Data on GitHub, or if you want to email me and let me know, I will be happy to let you, I would be happy to send you the link to the repo, and I would welcome your feedback.
Okay, great. So we are almost out of time here. So I just wanted to wrap up by thanking everybody for joining us. Oh, we just got one last minute question. What tool did we use to show the live content personalization on site? Is it part of Treasure Data?
Could you clarify your question? What tool do we use? So this one, are you talking about this website here? Or?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
That website.
Okay. Yeah, so on this site, actually, we have both. This is like our sales engineer test site. So we actually have a lot of tools on this site, too many tools. So this is, because we're testing it out and we do development against it. And so this actually is going to be, this one here is actually it's actually this exact code right here. I pulled it from the website. So this is just using JavaScript and jQuery, the jQuery library, and then the Treasure Data library. There's a different part that works with the Google Optimize. So we have both here. This is just straight JavaScript. I would say the Google Optimize component is something I'm documenting as well. It's a little bit easier. You just have to wrap your mind around, if you've ever used Adobe Target, you'll know, or you're a long-time Adobe Target user, you know that it used to be called Test and Target. But now it's just called Target because it covers testing as well as personalization. So Google Optimize is still called a testing tool, but really you can use it as like a customer personalization tool. So right here, to answer your question, this specific splash is just JavaScript. I would encourage you, it's probably a little bit easier to think about it in terms of either Adobe Target or Google Optimize as a delivery tool, because then you're not asking people to write stuff.
Cool. Okay, great. So we are out of time now. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. We will make this recording available to you for you to share with your teams. Thank you, Michael, for joining us from New York. That's great.
Thank you, Laura.
And just so everybody knows, we are planning on doing more of these hands-on webinars, exploring different parts of the Treasure Data product and new releases. So please watch your emails and the customer newsletter that we send out monthly. That will have information. I believe our next webinar we are going to do, date to be decided, but probably the end of May, how Treasure Data implements slowly changing dimensions using workflows. That's our next one. We'll have more in June and July. So thank you very much for joining us, and we hope to see you all at another webinar. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.